Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror film called The Mimic. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. A man anxiously drives along the road to Mount Jang in search of a secluded spot as his female companion asks him in a panicked voice if he knows where he's going. Distracted by the woman's nagging, the driver runs over a dog on the dark road, prompting him to hit the brakes. He grabs the dead animal and opens the car trunk, where he is keeping his wife captive. The wife tearfully begs her husband not to kill her, but he ignores her pleas and throws the dog inside the trunk. When they arrive at their destination, the man smashes a brick wall covering the entrance to a cave. When the mistress reaches the site, she staggers back in horror as she witnesses the wife drawing her last breath. After putting the wife's body inside the cave, they suddenly hear her voice as they walk back to the car. When the man removes a loose brick to take a peek inside, he hears his wife's voice again, followed by several other voices, including their own. The man and his mistress turn and run, leaving the loose brick on the ground and a small opening to the cave. Hyun and her husband Minho decide to move to Mount Jang in the hopes that it would help Hyun's senile mother, Sun Ja, recover her memories. While relaxing outside, Sun Ja sees her granddaughter, Jun-hee, approaching her, but she mistakes the child for her sister. Sun Ja starts hearing voices coming from the woods, so she warns the child that something terrifying is nearby. She hurries back to the house, taking her granddaughter with her. After shopping for groceries, Hyun sees an unkempt child walking on the streets. She notices that the boy is wearing the same shoes worn by her missing son, Jun-soo. So she tries running after it. Failing to catch up to the child, Hyun goes back home and unpacks Jun-soo's belongings, hoping to find clues that would help her find her son. She tells Minho that she wants to start looking for Jun-soo again, but Minho discourages her, noting that the boy has been missing 5 years. Hyun tearfully reminds him of his vow to keep up the search, so Minho promises to ask the authorities to continue looking for the boy. One day, a brother and his sister stop by Hyun's house searching for their missing dog. Hyun tells the kids that they had mistaken her family's dog, Mung, for their missing pet, but she encourages them to keep looking. When the boy comes across the path leading to the cave, he hears a dog barking, so they follow the path. Along the way, they see an abandoned car with a damaged windshield stained with blood. Upon reaching the cave entrance, the girl reaches into the hole in the wall, calling out to their dog. Unable to see anything, the girl uses her cell phone to shine a light inside the cave. When her phone rings, a hand grabs her and takes her inside. The frightened boy slowly peeks into the opening of the cave to look for her sister. When a hand reaches out to him, he staggers, but he's soon relieved to see his sister emerging from the cave. The children tell Hyun and Minho about what happened at the cave, so they go to the site to investigate. As Hyun walks around the woods, she finds a little girl wandering on her own. She tries talking to her, but the child wouldn't respond. When Minho reaches his hand to touch her, the child recoils and raises her hand to shield herself. They suddenly hear the children screaming for help, so Minho goes back to the cave entrance. When Hyun tries to follow him, the girl grabs her shirt, trying to stop her. Hyun tells the child to wait for her and goes to the cave. Meanwhile, Minho enters the cave and discovers a bolted door. After forcing the door open, he tries looking inside, but it's too dark. A mutilated woman suddenly emerges and throws herself upon Minho, causing him to fall on his back. As Minho struggles to get away, the woman falls on him and dies. Soon, the police arrive at the site to investigate. While looking around the woods, Detective Kim finds an old picture of a young girl and a man. By the time the lead detective arrives, Hyun is already exasperated from repeatedly explaining the incident to the cops, so she leaves the site and goes home. That night, the little girl Hyun found in the woods knocks on their door, so Hyun lets her inside and asks her husband to let the girl stay there for the night. Meanwhile, Detective Kim looks at the old cases related to the cave and learns that they involve missing persons. Before the victims disappeared, they heard voices of their dead relatives asking them to go to the cave. As Hyun bats the child, she finds signs of physical maltreatment on the girl's body. She tries dressing the child in Junhee's clothes, but they're too big for her, so Hyun decides to let her wear Jun Seo's clothes. As the girl listens to Junhee and Hyun talk, she starts mimicking Junhee's voice, calling Hyun mom and claiming that her name is also Junhee. The following day, Hyun and Minho feel irritation in their eyes, thinking that they are signs of infection. Suddenly, they hear a noise outside their house, so they go out and find a blind woman walking away. When Hyun calls out to her, the blind woman tells them to leave the place immediately, noting that the place is dangerous because she can hear voices again. Inside the house, the mysterious girl observes Junhee playing outside and imitates her laugh and speech. While Minho is preparing some medicine for their dogs, he hears Junhee's cheerful voice, but he's perturbed when he finds out that it was the girl from the woods. At the police station, the detectives manage to track down the abandoned car's owner. By that time, the owner is already having problems with his vision and is still hearing voices, telling him to come to the cave. Detective Kim asks him about the woman found dead in the cave, but he wouldn't respond. He tries shaking his ears, hoping that he would stop hearing his wife's voice. When he gets home, he frantically washes his face to jolt himself awake. But soon, he hears knocks coming from inside the cabinet. When he opens it, he hears his wife asking him for help. He drops to the ground and whimpers in sheer terror when he sees a hand appear in the reflection, desperately trying to break out of the mirror. While preparing to take Junhee to school, Minho asks his wife if she has reported the mysterious girl to the police. When he learns that the girl is also called Junhee, he points out that she also sounds like their daughter. Hyun is reluctant to report the girl to the police because she fears that the authorities would not take good care of her. Minho points out that the girl's parents are probably worried about her, so he urges Hyun to go to the police right away. Meanwhile, Sun Ja hears her brother's voice, telling her to come to him. Hyun notices the television on with no one watching, so she looks for the strange child. When she opens the wardrobe, she finds the girl hiding inside. She takes the girl out of the wardrobe and asks what she's doing inside, but she doesn't reply. Suddenly, Sun Ja approaches them with a knife and tries to stab the girl. Hyun defends the child and runs out of the house after disarming Sun Ja. Hyun and the child run to the shed and lock the door. Sun Ja bangs on the door repeatedly, saying the voice she's been hearing is not her brother's. The child hides inside the dog cage holding a piece of broken mirror to defend herself. Sunja stops banging on the door and Hyun tries to console the little girl, projecting her love for her missing son on the girl. Later that night, Minho goes to Sunja's room to check on her. He's baffled to see the mirror covered with tape. He asks Sunja if she taped the mirror, but he doesn't get a response. He peels away a strip of tape and leaves the room to tell Hyun to take Sunja back to the nursing home because they're having a hard time taking care of her. The child from the woods approaches Hyun to tell her that she can't sleep. When Hyun puts her to bed, she asks her about Junsu, saying Hyun kept repeating the name in her sleep. Hyun tells her that he's Junhee's brother. Hyun explains that she doesn't know where Junsu is, but his grandmother might know. Hyun recalls leaving Junsu with Sunja at the grocery. Sunja holds the boy's hand tight as he cries, but later on, Sunja is left alone staring into space, clutching the child's toy in her hand. Minho is increasingly bothered by the presence of the mysterious girl in their home, so he instructs Hyun to take her to the police station the next day. Hyun objects and confesses that the girl reminds her of their son. She vows to start the search for Junsu again, insisting that the boy is still out there. Minho, however, believes that the child is already dead and tells Hyun to let go and move on. Later that night, Sunja starts hearing her dead brother's voice again, calling her from behind the mirror. This time, Sunja also hears her dead sister's voice. Due to her illness, she has forgotten that her sister is dead, so she heads to the cave, following her voice. The following day, the family scrambles to find Sunja, but she's nowhere to be found. When Minho looks at the mirror in Sunja's room, he is puzzled by the liquid dripping on the reflection while the mirror itself appears to be dry. Minho removes more strips of tape from the mirror, revealing 2 handprints on the mirror. Minho goes missing hours later after asking the girl from the woods about Sunja's whereabouts. Hyun reports Minho's sudden disappearance to the police, saying there's something strange going on in the town. When Hyun mentions the girl from the woods, Detective Kim asks to speak to her, but the child is nowhere to be found. The detective reveals several reports of missing persons in the town, and there have been mentions of the girl. When Detective Kim shows Hyun a picture he found in the woods, Hyun confirms that the girl in the picture is the girl she took into her house. Kim, however, points out that the picture was taken in the 80s. Kim goes back to the police station and looks at the records mentioning the strange girl. Some witnesses say that the girl never spoke, but one told the police that the child invited a victim to come with her. While Hyun looks for Junhee in the woods, the blind woman she met days earlier approaches her and takes her to her house. The woman tells her that the entity responsible for the disappearances is known as the Jangsan tiger, which mimics the voice of humans to entice them to its lair. Several shamans have served the horrific tiger, but one particular shaman had gained extraordinary powers after serving the entity. As the tiger slowly possesses the shaman, he starts looking at his neglected daughter with contempt as she cries for her missing mother. Soon, the tiger completely takes over the shaman's mind, but it still wants to possess something pure. The shaman grabs his daughter and puts the terrified child inside a drum as he performs an unholy ritual for the dreadful entity. Soon, the shaman and his daughter disappear from the town, leaving the villagers to speculate about their fate. The blind woman discloses that people started disappearing soon after the shaman and his daughter went missing. She believes that the missing villagers have been sacrificed to the Jangsan tiger. The woman warns Hyun not to trust the girl because when she appears, the shaman usually follows. She points out that they exploit their victims' vulnerabilities and use their guilt, anger, and longing to entice them to the cave. The woman notes people usually have trouble seeing when the girl starts breaking their chi. She hands Hyun a talisman to provide temporary protection from the tiger. As Hyun runs back to the house, Junhee wakes up and tries to find her mom to tell her about her irritated eyes. When Junhee hears Hyun's voice, she slowly approaches the bathroom, but she runs away in complete terror when she sees the shaman emerging from the mirror. Junhee hides inside their shed and comes across the strange girl, pointing a broken mirror at her while imitating her mother's voice. When Hyun finally reaches the house, she finds the girls hiding in the dresser. Junhee tells Hyun that the strange girl saved her. Hyun recalls the blind woman telling her that the child is the only one who knows the way to the tiger's territory. In the hopes of saving her husband and mother from the tiger, Hyun asks the child to take her to the cave. The child, however, is reluctant, fearing that the shaman will harm her. She asks Hyun to promise that she'll protect her and never leave her alone. Before venturing into the cave, Hyun covers all the mirrors in the house and warns Junhee against trusting anyone. She then tells her daughter to call Detective Kim if she doesn't return the next day. Upon reaching the cave, the child tells Hyun not to respond to any voice she hears. Hyun is suddenly struck with fear and confusion when she starts hearing the voices of her husband and her daughter. Hyun starts calling out to Junhee when she hears her screaming, but the strange child pleads with her not to respond. Soon, the possessed shaman emerges and chases after them. The man almost catches up to Hyun as she crawls through a narrow space, but the child pulls her out. Hyun and the child find themselves in a chamber full of mirrors, where they hear multiple voices. In her confusion, Hyun covers her ears and leans against a large mirror. She doesn't flinch or struggle when the shaman emerges and lays his hands on her. As the shaman slowly pulls her inside the mirror, Minho arrives and smashes the mirror. Minho, now completely blind, tells Hyun to climb up the hole that he fell through to escape from the tiger. As Hyun struggles to climb up, she receives a call from Detective Kim, so she answers the phone and pleads for help. Hyun then loses her grip, but she feels someone grabbing her and hears Detective Kim. However, she soon discovers that she's holding on to the shaman's hand, so she lets go and falls back down to the ground. Minho, Hyun, and the child crawl through the narrow passage to get away from the shaman. As they turn to leave, the child calls out to Hyun, but Minho warns her not to trust the child. The girl hugs Hyun and begs her not to leave, but Hyun starts losing her vision, so she walks out of the cave with Minho. As Hyun looks back, the child tearfully reminds Hyun of her promise not to leave her. Soon, a tiger starts to weaken as the mirrors in the chamber continue to break. As Hyun and Minho carefully climb up the stairs leading outside, Hyun hears Junsu's voice, pleading with her to stay. Minho points out that the voice she's hearing is not Junsu, but Hyun cannot resist, so she turns back. With her fading vision, she runs toward the child and hugs her, talking to her as if she is Junsu. Minho manages to walk out of the cave and comes across Detective Kim. Inside, the child guides Hee-yeon deeper into the cave, with her desire to have a mother that cares for her finally quenched. In Korean folklore, the Jangsan tiger is known to have the ability to create noise that lures people deep into the forest. The mythical animal can mimic the voice of a wailing woman, making people think that someone in the forest needs help. At other times, it can imitate the sound of running water to lure thirsty hikers. However, the tiger terrorizing Hee-yeon's village is far more dreadful, as it can possess a human and exploit its victims' feelings to lure them into its lair. The reports reveal that most of the victims encounter the child and were most likely lured to the cave because of her innocence. Though the knowledgeable villagers think of the strange child as malevolent, she appears to be a victim of the entity and the shaman's thirst for power. The Jangsan tiger uses the child to break his potential victim's chi slowly, but there's no indication that she's deliberately doing it. When she first met Hee-yeon, she stops her from venturing into the cave, as if she doesn't want her to be harmed by the vicious tiger. When Junhee comes under attack from the shaman, the child hides with her instead of luring her back to the malevolent entity. After experiencing maltreatment from her father, the child takes the opportunity to find solace at the caring hands of Hee-yeon. Although the child helps Hee-yeon escape from the shaman, she wouldn't let her leave. Despite her innocence, she knows how to exploit Hee-yeon's longing for her lost son to satisfy her longing for a mother. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.